He knew everything and all things about anything.
Wilt was a Renaissance man.
He was the first rock and roll superstar in basketball.
The statistics he put up, score 100 points in a basketball game.
Average 50 points a game.
NBA Hall of Famer Wilt Chamberlain is one of the greatest, but also one of the most misunderstood athletes of all time. The new docuseries Goliath gives viewers a look at the historic life, career, and impact Chamberlain had on the game of basketball.
Rob Ford and Chris Dillon are the co-directors of the film and join us now to tell us more. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Well, I think people know the stats. I mean, unbelievable records of that'll never be broken. What did you learn about Wilt Chamberlain that you didn't think you'd find out?
For me, just how deeply sensitive and emotional he was as a human being. I think there's this sort of external narrative of this facade of tough, machismo, bravado, but he was a tender man who felt deeply, and a lot of the parts of him that we bring to life in this film display the emotional side of Wilt.
Right. I think that there's a way in which Wilt was the first to do so many things that I didn't quite realize. And because he is so globally famous and so iconic, that what it was like to go through that and be the first person to become a global basketball superstar as an African-American man in America at that time period left some scars on Wilt that he was good at hiding, I think.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was as much of an activist. I think of Bill Russell and maybe Muhammad Ali. What was he doing out there?
I think the activism for him, to the point that you just mentioned relative to an Ali or a Russell, it wasn't as overt, it was more inherent in his actions and the opportunities he created, for others, just by the space that he commanded with understanding his own, value. That was political in and of itself. A lot of the contracts he garnered, a lot of the value he created for player contracts, as well as the value of teams by the time he was done, was revolutionary within and of itself.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, what was his relationship with women? People who aren't even basketball fans may know his story about sleeping with 20,000 women, which I'm not sure. Some people have said the math doesn't add up. But did you explore that part of his life and what he has to say about all that and an attitude that may not hold up today?
Absolutely. There's a few threads of Wilt's life that we run throughout the three parts, and that is one of them, showing how it started for him as well, because being the first basketball 7-foot superstar was not a golden ticket to people when he was coming up. So he wasn't appealing to women early in his life, and then clearly, you could argue overcompensated as time went on. But that is a big part of it. And we touch, especially in episode 3, on the book, what he claimed, what the reality of that might be, and also what was going on for Wilt under the surface. And his sisters lend a lot of insight into him as a human being in that way.
And if I could just wrap it, I'm curious to know what he thought of, as dominant as he was, being bested by Bill Russell time and time again, a guy who was a good 4 inches shorter.
Well, that's a huge part of our story because we are framing this around the story of Wilt as it was told to, us by the press and the media, and the myth that came down, which is what you're alluding to. And we try to unpack that along with his personality and things about him that people don't know, to see how much the historical record really compares with, who ended up winning or losing a particular championship. And it's far more interesting and nuanced than I understood when I first looked at it. And his willingness to evolve as a basketball player, I think, is unsurpassed in the history of basketball.
Well, thank you both for being with us. Goliath premieres July 16th on Showtime. For more, you can check out religionofsports.com or follow Chris and Rob on social media that you see there. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, Morgan.